when I read this entire post the very first time, the one thing that clicked, and maybe it's just me that noticed it, is how this is basically a step-by-step procedure on how women move into guys' places. And I don't know, maybe in your part of the world, wherever it is that you're listening from, maybe it's a different way that people do it. But I remember the stories of this happening, like from when...
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who might find it hard to breathe if you've got that asthma. He is also a man who may include skipping leg day to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Dan Verby. And originally I was going to say that I am here to speak on women, but that would make it not sound good. But, I also noticed something else. So, I'm here to speak on dating. And it does involve women to a certain degree, but I kid you not, this isn't in a bad light. This is actually in a very good light. I am here to support you, as opposed to what some of y'all might have thought of me in, the previous episode and shit. And the best part about it is, it's not that I'm fighting anyone. I'm actually siding with the majority, but not in a way that some of y'all might think. Just mostly from a point of trying to show that sometimes logic isn't something that is very far off. Sometimes it's something that is as obvious as it is under your nose. You just have to be willing to look there and, scratch it a little bit so that you can see the truth. And for you to find out what exactly I'm talking about, you should probably listen all the way till the end, because I do have a particularly interesting main topic coming up. And should you like it, should you not like it, should you have a different form of feedback, or should you want to suggest a potential topic or a potential guest, then the DMs are always open. The social media links almost never really change. And I'd be more than happy to get your feedback and handle it accordingly, even if they're not so nice comments. And with that said, I should probably be getting into things and, getting to my rant and my main topic. But before I can start anything, I first want to start off by giving some news for those of y'all that listen to the podcast pretty frequently or are regular listeners. So usually after I do my episodes for about 12 weeks, I'll usually take a break for about 2 to 3 weeks where I kind of give myself some R&R. But whenever I usually take those breaks and those R&Rs, I usually will leave a couple of clips worth of content for you guys to listen to. They're usually shorter, less editing, no instrumentals and everything. And they are coming back. I have done my full 12 weeks, and from next week there will be shorter clips, somewhere in the 12 to 17 minute range, and that's something that will be occupying, the time being up until I come back to do regular episodes. And it's gonna have some particularly interesting topics that I'd like to talk about. So I'll just add for clarification, this episode, next episode, full length, typical normal episodes that I do. But for next week, the week after that, and the week after that week, I will basically be having the much shorter episodes, less editing, no instrumentally, the smaller good stuff that some of y'all might enjoy if you're into just listening to the main topic. And with that said, I should definitely be getting to the main topic. Although before I can do that, I first need to address something that I found to be very, very interesting. So I'm scrolling through the gram or IG not too long ago, and I stumbled across this particularly interesting post about someone who was busy giving a play-by-play instruction or play-by-play instructions on how to move into a woman's house if you don't have your own. And the thing is, if it was a lesbian saying this, I don't think anyone would really bat an eyelid. But this was a man that was saying this. This was a man that was giving the full play-by-play, which kind of seems particularly odd and it seems a bit weird. But I was like, what, let me see if this guy has something interesting in there. And it was posted up on Facebook, and it kind of also went viral on X as well. And IG pages kind of picked it up. So it's one of those more viral posts that has been out there for a bit. And the guy gives a couple of tips here, and I am going to mention all of these tips and the breakdowns that this guy gives, and then give my thoughts on it, because I felt like this was very, very interesting. And it's not because it's a man that's trying to move into a babe's place, but rather what he said. And maybe not even for the reasons that some of y'all might think. So I'm just gonna read what the guy said. So he says, and I quote, "Step 1, start by staying the night more often. Let it feel natural. A couple of nights a week, then 3 to 4 nights. Let her see that she enjoys having you around. This creates the vibe without jumping straight to boxes and bags. Number 2, gradually keep small essentials there. Not furniture, just light stuff. A toothbrush, a hoodie, some boxes, body wash. Let it be things that make sense based on how often you stay over. If she's cool with it, she'll either not mention it or she'll say something like, you might as well leave that here. Step 3, make her life easier while you're there. This is how you make her want you around. You take out the trash, help with the groceries, cook sometimes, fix things, and keep the place clean. Women don't mind a man being around more when he's adding comfort, not clutter. Number 4, pay attention to her comfort level. If she makes more space for you, gives you a drawer, leaves a key on the table, starts saying our instead of my, then she's warming up to you being there more. 5, the smooth criminal move in. Leave your game over there. Once it's connected to the Wi-Fi, you're good. Bring a big suitcase over and say, don't worry, it's just laundry. One day she'll open her closet and realize that you live there now. Step 6, if she has kids, no problem. That's even better. Buy them chips and juice from the store a couple of times before you come over to win them over. Once the kids start vouching for you, you're in. Be expecting her to give you her EBT card real soon to show her appreciation. Once your whole wardrobe is there and she doesn't say nothing about time, you start receiving mail there, and congratulations, my brother, on your new apartment." End quote. Okay, particularly interesting post, and I'm not gonna lie, this was one of the more interesting posts that I've seen online, and the comments kind of weren't seeming that nice about it, because most of them were guys busy talking about like, bro, get your own place, like you shouldn't give up your own personal space to go and stay with a babe, it'll be a massive mistake, blah blah blah. Although I think the funniest one that I saw was where some guy was like, now how do I get her to move out, which was pretty smart in my opinion. But someone has to pay for the lease, someone has to pay the rent and shit. So that aside, looking at the comments and how guys were talking about how, this is goofy activities, this is corny, as a man you shouldn't be doing this, I kind of looked at it, and while it might seem very diabolical, especially if a woman might read it, when I read this entire post the very first time, the one thing that clicked, and maybe it's just me that noticed it, is how this is basically a step-by-step procedure on how women move into guys' places. And I don't know, maybe in your part of the world, wherever it is that you're listening from, maybe it's a different way that people do it. But I remember the stories of this happening, like from when I was younger, how women would start by leaving small things, leave her shoes there, maybe leave her dress. Eventually she gets her own toothbrush, she starts moving in with certain things here and there. And if you can alter a couple of elements here and there and just basically replace the whole bit about a man moving into a woman's place and switch it up and say a woman moving into a man's place, I kid you the hell not, it's basically the same exact plan. You come in, you start in bits, and you start bringing, more shit. But as you're doing that, you're busy trying to make the house a bit more comfortable. Like, it's something that we've seen happen before. It's a strategy that a lot of women have employed, and it's worked, to a lot of women's successes. Even though there are a couple of failures here and there, but they're a bit more recent. Like, it's something that I've seen women do time and time and time again. So seeing that it's a guy trying to do this, like, first of all, this is one of those, men doing well in women's spaces type thing, which, sounds funny as a joke. But on the flip side, I'm looking at it and I'm like, why'd you have to move into her place? Like, yes, I can get it, just like every other person would have said, this is basically bum behavior. But still, by the time you're getting to that point, how desperate are you that you have to move into her place? And, if the two of you are comfortable with each other to the point where she's like, okay, I want you to stay at my place, I know you're not doing as great, then it makes sense. It makes perfect sense for you to do that. But a guy orchestrating and scheming their way in like that, like, that's a bit of a tricky thing. That's very tricky from a guy's perspective because you don't look as good. At least the image doesn't look good to most guys. And even though someone can say, oh, game is game, it still doesn't affect your brand and your image as a guy and your reputation as a guy that well. But then again, like, ego is a social construct, as some people would call it. And for some people, provided that my needs are met, why the hell do I really have to care about other people? So if it's something that's been working for you, well and good, you can go do you, boo. But personally, I wouldn't endorse it because it just doesn't put you in a particularly good position as a guy. But, then again, I could be wrong about this. So, I'm just going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode, which involves dating women and how some woman supposedly thinks that rotational dating is actually a good thing. Now, rotational dating in this case, at least the way she was trying to define it, is the concept of dating multiple people all at the same time. Not dating in the sense that you're sleeping with all of them, but you're going on dates with multiple people at the same time. Now, this lady seems to be more of a South African babe, and she was busy talking about how rotational dating is African and men are apparently like so pissed off and they don't like it, and rotational dating favors the men more than the women. And she was basically trying to make a point that as Africans we should stick to rotational dating. Now, I personally don't agree with that, and I have my thoughts on the entire thing. But let me just let the clip play. And quick disclaimer, it's a bit of a long one because it's 3 minutes, but I am going to give my thoughts on it right after that. So without further ado,
it actually works in men's favor for you as a young woman to believe that rotational dating makes you a promiscuous person, because I think just men today in general can't handle healthy competition. You know what I mean? First of all, rotational dating doesn't mean that you sleep with everyone that you date. Unless you want to. I mean, it's a free country. Your body, your rules. But the essence of rotational dating is you should be getting to know multiple people at the same time. You should be taken out on dates by multiple people at the same time. Get to know people so that you make an informed decision on who you should be with. And I think the culture now, when we were growing up, was, oh, a guy asks you out, uyakshela, and then 3 days later, ipi answer yami. There was so much pressure to give these people an answer. And if you don't give him an answer and you do like him, then he's probably going to move on with somebody else or date somebody else or whatever the case may be. But when you really think about it and you really look into history, rotational dating is nothing new. Back in the days, our ancestors used to rotational date. They would meet at the river. The ladies would meet the gents at the river. And then the gentlemen would plead their cases. And a woman would have many suitors, which is why she took so long to make a decision. And you'd hear stories from our grandparents where they're like, umuntu wesilisa would ask you out for 2 years. And they just had to be patient because they knew that there were other people who were also asking you out. And so you were given time to make that decision. But now when you as a woman decide that I'm going to rotational dates, I'm seeing people, it almost puts a label on you that, oh, she's promiscuous, uthanda bafana, etc., etc. And that honestly should not be the case. But because we are dealing with a lot, and not all men, but a lot of men with fragile egos, this is the narrative that is being pushed, which is completely unfair because it almost forces you to date the first guy who asks you out when you don't even know if this person is worthy of your time. God forbid you date this person for years and they're not really the kind of guy that you should be with. How will you know if you don't explore your options? And as women, we tend to become so attached to the people that we date. You see the same guy often enough, your feelings are bound to grow. Next thing, you're having feelings for a loser. Like, I don't get it. And that's why I 100% believe in rotational dating, and history backs me up. And it's not an American concept. It's definitely African.
Okay. Particularly interesting take, very interesting beliefs. Do I agree? No. And, granted, I'm a man, and, she said that, men would not like the idea, blah, blah, fragile egos. And I know that, considering that I have this and I'm saying that I don't agree, that there's people that expect me to be like, oh no, this woman's chatting a bunch of bullshit. O, A, B, C, and D are all garbage, so you probably shouldn't listen to her. Like, I know there's women that would probably expect me to do that or say a bunch of those things. And, some of them are even in the comments or like, oh, men typing and deleting and shit. But in this particular case, considering that, it's been said that men do not like the idea of women rotationally dating, I wouldn't even say that it's garbage, but I will at least show that what she's saying actually isn't right. Just mostly because I don't believe in it, and I have my reasons for it, which I'm gonna give. Now, first of all, I am going to say that as a guy, and I can speak for most, if maybe not even all guys, we don't care about you dating rotationally. Like, if you're a babe and, like you want to go and you want to date multiple guys all at the same time, go do you, boo. But now, where we do give a shit is if we are part of that rotation. In that, like, if let's say I meet this fine babe and then, I start taking her out on dates, but then I find out that I'm part of, this rotation of other guys that are also taking her out on dates and also find her very attractive, then of course I'm going to feel some type of way. One, I'm using my resources to basically kind of show this babe that I really, really want to be with her and I'm trying to get to know her and shit. And, doing that with like other guys doing the same thing almost makes it feel as though like y'all are being taken for a ride. Because like, what the fuck is this? The Bachelorette? And the thing is, as a guy, if I'm going out on dates with a woman, it's because I believe that this is someone that I would want to get to know a little bit better, to the point where I am willing to put my resources to finding that out, at least from the point of going out on dates. So finding out that you're not the only guy that has the opportunity to do that, while there are some guys that might like the competition, most guys don't really feel all that great about it. And, the same thing can also be said about women. It's not like women like knowing that they're part of a rotation. And it's not even about the knowledge of it, it's just doing it isn't something that most people who are on the other side would really particularly like. So, us guys don't really care about you rotationally dating. It's just we don't want to be part of that rotation. If you're gonna have a rotation, you go do it with whoever it is that you're interested in, or at least who expresses interest in you. Please feel free to be open about the fact that they are part of a rotation, and then you can see their reaction to it. It's not even about ego. Sometimes guys just don't want that, because it's just, some shit that they're not ready for. And, for the guys that might enjoy that experience, they can tell us what it's like being on The Bachelorette. Now, with that said, she did speak on how, during her grandmother's time, they would go to the river and there were multiple suitors. They would, basically state their case or plead their case so that they can bag the shorty. And, okay, while it does sound like she is making a point, I need us to remember something that I don't think a lot of us do pay attention to. And that is the fact that having multiple suitors doesn't equal rotational dating. Like, pleading your case, stating your case, like that shit doesn't really equal like dating in as much as people might think it does. And the reason I say that is because dating is a fairly recent and new concept. Like I said, this is some shit that originated in the Western world like 200 years ago. For most of us Africans, we got into dating maybe in like the early 1900s, the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s there. So it's not like we had like actual experience as far as dating is concerned. Having multiple suitors is basically like dudes shooting their shot with you. And the idea of dating didn't really exist back in the day because dating essentially has existed and exists for two parties to basically get to know one another so that they can decide if they are going to court and eventually get married. That's essentially the primary reason for dating to exist. Back in the day, they didn't have that because the closest thing that you'd have to marriage or, some sort of premarital, sort of getting to know each other type thing is maybe courtship. And by the time that was happening, dowry negotiations were either going on or they were basically just about to conclude. The rest of the time, y'all were kind of just, getting to know each other, or you already knew of each other, and it's your parents that were busy having these discussions. So there wasn't really any element of dating back then, because the whole getting to know each other was a family thing, and the parents were the ones that were mostly handling this. Now, granted, I could be wrong, and there's other, cultural behaviors and acts and rituals and shit, depending on whichever African tribe you're a part of. But for the most part, the one thing I know almost certainly was the fact that whenever it came down to marriage, it was more a family thing and was mostly handled by the parents, as opposed to the children themselves deciding that they want to marry some guy or some babe. The best they would probably do is suggest a potential suitor or someone that they're potentially interested in so that the parents could try. But for the most part, most of that decision making usually came down to the parents. And with that said, this thing of, who you should be or shouldn't be with when it comes to dating or a relationship and shit that she was mentioning is a bit odd to me, because deciding on who you should be with or who you shouldn't be with isn't a matter of you analyzing options. It comes down to the kind of integrity and character and values you'd want the other person to have, or essentially just the traits that you'd want the other person to have. And, the person that you end up with, whether they match all of them or none of them or some of them, is it someone that you choose to want to be with? And at the end of the day, that choice kind of comes down to you more than anything else. So when she talks about this whole idea of ending up with a person that you shouldn't be with, if you shouldn't be with that person, then you're supposed to leave. And if you don't leave, then probably deep down you believe that you should be with said person, or at least something in you tells you that you should be with said person. So essentially what you have is a bunch of entitlement, believing and thinking that you should be with a certain higher or better tier or upper tier human being, as opposed to the person you're currently with, which honestly speaking comes down to whatever choices you make. So don't abscond your choices and say that you should be with someone better, yet you've chosen someone that isn't that great for you. At the end of the day, if you ended up settling down with a loser, there must have been something in that loser that you loved so much that you are willing to go long term with said person, or you stayed with that person, you know that you should leave, but you would much rather just sit in the misery than get back out into the dating market and find somebody else, potentially somebody better. So there's nothing about who you should or shouldn't be with. That choice comes down to you, the individual that is with that person, whether they are a partner or a potential partner. And this is why the whole thing of exploring options kind of becomes an issue, because when you look at it, this woman is talking about how, if you end up with, so and so and you get attached to them because you didn't try out other options, it doesn't come down to whether you have multiple options or not. It's usually who it is that you feel the most compatible with, because at the end of it, you quote unquote testing out, multiple individuals because you try and find, someone that's supposed to be the one for you, will never really come down to how many choices you've selected and who's the best out of those choices. It usually comes down to what it is that you're interested in as far as, potential partners go, and what it is that you would want, and what it is that you're willing to compromise on. Also, if there's a spark between you and a potential person. It doesn't come down to options. And let me try and explain it like this. If, for example, you end up, and this is regardless of gender, you meet a good person, a bad person, and an ugly person, and you end up being attracted to the good person. At the end of it, like, it's not like if you had, let's say, another 9 good people, another 9 bad people, and another 9 ugly people, that it would make your selection process any better. Fine, yes, you'd still stray towards the good side, but now instead of centering on the one guy, you're basically having to figure out which one out of the 10 good men that are there, or 10 good women, are you going to end up with, which is basically confusing yourself even more, because now it's like, okay, I want a good partner, or I want a good potential partner, but now I have to go through 10 people instead of just one, which doesn't really help you in the long run. Like, now you have an abundance of options, but now this is where analysis paralysis starts to set in. This is where the illusion of choice, because you think that you can get a little bit more from one versus the other, usually steps in, and very quickly, especially if you manage to center on one that seems to have the best qualities, will you find yourself in a position where you might have gone for the person that ticked the most boxes, but they don't really appeal to your heart as much as some of the other options that didn't tick all of the boxes kind of falls in. Because at the end of it, as human beings, one thing that you realize more than anything, if you've been grown and you've had, at least some experience as far as the dating market is concerned, someone can tick all of the boxes that you think you need ticked, but at some point you might not be feeling that person. You might not, be entirely into said person, but the person that has a couple of red flags here and there, a couple of boxes that might be left unticked, might appeal to you so much that you're willing to go and be with said person. Because at the end of the day, the human body, human emotions, and your heart, they don't give a shit about whatever boxes need to be ticked. Like, yes, you can try to have, the right boxes set up and everything, but some of those boxes aren't going to be ticked. Some of those red flags are going to be there. And guess what? You might just fall for those people. And you kind of need to be accepting of that particular case. So if you've fallen for a loser, you'd have liked that loser regardless, because you were attracted to certain qualities that, made up the loser that they are. But, you were attracted to them regardless. So it's not really an issue of options, it's just an issue of what it is that you're attracted to. And the easiest way to explain this is, for anyone who's gone TV shopping, not, the typical online thing where you just have it sent, but like you go to a store, like a supermarket or like an appliance store or anything, and you're trying to get a TV, all right? When you go and you look at a bunch of TVs, you can go and you can probably pick through the bad ones and push them aside already. But when you're looking for the best possible option, you will be comparing price, you will be comparing how they look, you will be comparing so many different things, and the person that is attending to you from the store will give you all sorts of details about which one's great, which one's not. And the most interesting part about it is, whichever one you pick that you feel like is the best, you'll probably end up going home with it. But at the back of your mind, there's a very high likelihood that you might think back to some of the other TVs and be like, oh, maybe if I spent a little bit more, I'd have been, with a much better TV, or maybe if I considered the other brand, maybe this would have been better. But at the end of the day, what it is that you were attracted to was probably how thin the bezels are, how clear and good quality the picture is, and if the price could allow it. But at the end of it, you realize that your ability to select a good TV would have been a hell of a lot easier if you weren't comparing 3 of those TVs side by side. Because when you take that one TV home, you won't be comparing it side by side with another TV, whether older or newer. You'll just be looking at the one TV. So it's not like having all of those options is going to make it that much better. It might actually make it worse. And to kind of conclude all of this, what I'm trying to say is, the illusion of choice has convinced some of you, mostly women, that the more the choice, the better it is. And I'm just gonna say, take it from me, no amount of choice can outrun poor selection habits. If you're shit at selecting a mate, then you're shit at selecting a mate. Regardless of which great number of people you'll meet, if you're shit at selecting a mate, you will still end up with the shittiest example. So maybe rotational dating isn't the best idea for you. And you know what? That's okay. Regardless of gender, rotational dating has never produced the absolute best results. It's just confused people a hell of a lot more, not unless if they find the one person that lights up the spark that makes them drop everyone else. Although, then again, maybe I could be wrong about this and maybe I don't fully understand, rotational dating and the potential benefits of it. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open on IG, it is at the Breaktime _podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at Bagak the D. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.